We've worked with 3,000 plus businesses in the last 5 years. And when a new client comes in, the number one thing we look at every single time is what is the biggest constraint that, if unlocked, will result in massive growth for the company. And in this video, I'm going to share one of the quickest and easiest ones that we work with clients every single time, and that's increasing their show rates, especially if they're a sales team related business. So this video is going to cover 7 ways, 7 levers to increase show rates. Let's dive in. Now, the first thing I like to clarify is, why are we increasing show rates? Like, what are we actually trying to optimize? And so the answer is kind of obvious, but are we just trying to increase show rates? Yes, kind of. But from a first principles perspective, what we're really trying to increase is offers per closer per day. Okay, so in other words, how many offers is each salesperson on your team making per day? That's the primary KPI of your sales operations department. So for context, there's 3 key departments in the acquisition part, the revenue driving part of your business. There's marketing, which their primary metric, KPI, is MQLs, marketing qualified leads. In other words, they want to pass off a lead to sales, which is essentially deemed as qualified based on the information, based on the application, etc. Then there's sales, which the primary KPI is usually either units sold or cash collected or both. Then the final department that not a lot of people talk about is sales operations, sales ops. And their primary KPI is exactly what I said, is basically offers per slot per day. So if a closer has 6 open slots a day, what is the probability that in each of those open slots, they're going to make an offer? There's 2 things that will dictate that. Okay, it's not only how many people show up. I mean, that's the obvious one, but it's also the quality of those people and also the optimization of each call slot. So we're going to talk about double booking versus single booking later, but that's another thing your sales ops department is in charge of. Okay, so in most transactional sales type businesses, which I mean by that is like if you have a sales cycle that is 2 or 3 weeks or less, generally. Okay, what we want to aim for in that scenario is 3 offers per closer per day. That should be your primary KPI, okay? So with knowing that, let's dive into our first show rate lever, which is the booking window. So anything out of 4 days is gonna have a significantly lower show rate. I found this in our testing. Tons of other people and clients and other industry leaders out there have found this in their testing as well. Generally, 3 days is the max you wanna go. What we found is the hotspot is 2 days out. Okay, and so we recommend using OneSub or Schedule Once. I think they changed the name, but basically there's functionality with OneSub that Calendly and all these other softwares don't have. It's right now the only one that we found that does everything we wanted to do at scale, especially at scale. And so if you're using OneSub, you're going to want to select the option that's a rolling 2-day window. So you don't want to do only the next 2 days. It's the next 2 days of availability. That way there's always something open. If you do only the next 2 days, the problem with that is that, you know, if you have a spree of bookings come in, your ads, people are going to go through your funnel and go through your ads, and there's not going to be any slots at all. We want to avoid that. So it's always the next 2 days. And then we want to kind of like essentially monitor our ad spend so that generally always the next 2 days is the next 2 days. That rolling booking window isn't out 3 or 4 days, if that makes sense. Okay. So this alone, it sounds very simple, but this alone, I've seen increased show rates from 30 to 40% all the way to 50 to 60%, which we could still get it higher from there. But obviously if you're doing 30 or 40%, it's really, really tough to build the sales team and actually make things work at that level. 50 to 60%, it starts to become a little bit more regular and you can actually start to make things work. So this is a huge lever if you're not doing it. The second lever is availability. So the higher your availability is, which is the amount of slots open per day when a prospect is looking essentially at, it's how many options do they have to pick, okay? So the higher availability, generally the higher show rate and also the higher overall funnel throughput, which makes sense. If somebody sees an ad, fills out an application, goes to your calendar, and then is trying to find, okay, a slot today, if there's only 3 options open, they may not even just book. So they might not even convert, right? And then a setter has to reach out, try to get them to book or whatever. But if there's 20 options open, they're much more likely to pick a time. So it increases throughput. And then because they're picking a time that's more likely to be convenient to them, it increases show rate. Now, I wouldn't increase availability at the expense of booking window. So going out 5 days to increase the availability, sometimes that's not going to be a good trade-off. So this is a balance, availability and booking window, that you kind of need to intersect. And it's very easy to do once you have a lot of closers, but at a small amount, as you'll see, it's kind of, sometimes you have to sort of pick what's going to be a compromise between both worlds. All right. So ideally, you need about 6 to 8 open slots per day per closer minimum. So if you have 6 to 8 open slots, and then also you maybe have some closers who are, if you're a remote sales team like us, some are PST, some are MST, some are CST, some are Eastern, we have a few European, etc. That makes it so we have a wide variety of slots open, which is a huge advantage. It's not, I mean, I'm not saying build an international team on purpose. It's not necessarily a must do, but it is something that if you happen to do it because you're a remote team like us and then you have that, it is an advantage. Now, if you have limited availability, so in other words, you only have one closer, or you're the entrepreneur, you're taking all the calls. First, what I would do is increase the booking window to 3 or 4 days and kind of test those results. If again, you're limited on availability because you're the only person, kind of start edging it and increasing it to 3 days, see what the results are, increasing to 4. And what you're really trying to do is like, look, you're not going to get the best of both worlds, because the best of both worlds is 2 days out and wide amounts of availability. But what you're going to do is go to 3 or 4 days, and you want to kind of find the intersection of what's that sweet spot. And then as you scale the team, essentially what you can do is start to bring that back down to a rolling 2 days, okay? Real quick, and then we'll get back to the video. If you need help with any of these 3 things, either installing a lead acquisition internally in your business, you need new sales reps, and you want sales reps recruited done for you, and also get the sales consulting and sales management help that comes with that, or if you just want overall business strategies of how you can scale to 8 figures or beyond, go to the link in the description, click that link, check out the video, and then book a call with our team. We'd love to help you with any of those 3 things. Now back to the video. Lever number 3 is application grading. So historically, we manually grade every application that comes in. Okay, now we have an AI system and a software internally that we use to do that. But for the majority of many years, we all did it manually, and it still works great. So the grading system looks at, number 1, can we actually help them? So what's their offer? Industry, like logistically, is this a client that we can help, or is this somebody who booked in that obviously we can't help? Number 2, are they financially qualified? Number 3, are they a decision maker? Number 4, what's their level of urgency, which we can see through asking the question generally in the application, like, hey, what's going on in your business that's making you want to X? Okay. And then also we look at, is this like a funnel hack, spam, or a tire kicker? And so we kind of look at also the detail and coherence of responses. So for instance, a application that's very well filled out isn't going to be as high graded as an application that's all one word. Okay. So those are all the factors that we take into account. And then based on all of those factors, we grade them 1 through 4. So 1s are auto cancels. That's usually spam or we can't help them. Number 2s, 2 grades are we move them to a setter. So instead of going direct to the closer, we move to a setter first, right? We might do that for money, or sometimes based on the responses, we can't disqualify them, but we also don't know for sure if we can actually help them. Sometimes it's like, man, there's some one-word responses here. We can't tell if it's spam or not. And then other times it's also non-decision makers. So the setter triage is kind of like this could be a good lead, but I'm not sure based on the application. So it's not worth canceling, but it's not worth putting on the closer's calendar either. So we have a setter vet those first. We manually move them to the setter's calendar. Again, if you have one sub, it's much easier to do that. Then 3s and 4s go to the closer's calendar. The only difference is the quality. 4s are higher quality than 3s. That's about it. So usually, generally, that means 3s are going to be a little bit lower revenue, maybe a little bit less urgency. 4s are high urgency, more revenue for us at least. So as you can imagine, if you're doing this, it's going to take your show rate way up, because automatically, if you're not filtering out the spam, if you're not filtering out the people that you can't help, etc., then you're going to have a super low show rate just because you're not doing any filtering whatsoever. Okay. Now, in addition, remember, this is why I said in the very beginning, sales ops, which the application grading is a function of sales ops, it's optimizing based on offers per closer per day. Okay. So this system is going to help make sure that the people who get on the calendar are not only people who are probably going to show up, but are also people who have a higher percentage of being qualified and therefore a higher percentage of being offered. So this is very key of just making sure all the riffraff doesn't go on the closer's calendar, but at the same time, the people that are on the calendar show up and are qualified to get an offer, thus increasing offers per closer per day. Okay. So now once this is set up, this is pretty cool. You want to do this, and I'd say do it once a month, once every 2 weeks, manually delineate show rate based on the app grade. Okay. So for example, you might find that your 2s show up at 50%, your 3s, 60%, and your 4s, 75%. This is very similar to what we found one time in our companies. Okay, so this is important because later on, we're going to talk about the double booking system. If we decide to do double or single bookings, a lot of time what happens is we'll single book anything above 66%. So in this case, it would be 4s. And then we double book anything below that unless they confirmed. Okay, so when we get to the double bookings, we'll talk about that later, but I have to lay this foundation with the application grading for us to even get there later, okay? Now, number 4, and this is the most important strategy I'm gonna cover in this video by far, okay, is a lead nurture specialist system. So our lead nurture specialist manually confirms all of the inbound appointments, okay? So we don't have the closers confirm. We have a manual, like dedicated employee who just confirms all appointments. Now, they don't do any phone calls. We've tested doing the phone calls and texting to confirm. The phone calls generally don't raise response at all. Sometimes I think like it confuses prospects. Texting, we found really, really great results for, and it's very simple, very easy to train, and it gets us the result we're looking for, essentially. So we only do the texting. Now, that's only for inbound appointments. Setters will still confirm their own appointments using a similar framework, but they're gonna, if the setter's making a set, it's on the setter to confirm the appointment, do the reminders, etc. Now, similar to application grading, we used to do this all manually. Now we have an AI to where we just have one person who oversees application grading and confirmations, and the AI does 90% of the work and they kind of do 10% of the work. But obviously, I probably wouldn't recommend developing your own AI. I would just do this manually at first to get it down. Then there's other softwares I can recommend if you're interested. So if you have 2 to 3 closers or below, all right, you're likely just going to have like your sales coordinator who's also doing the applications do this. If once you get a bigger team, like you have 4+ closers, you're going to want to make sure that this is like a standalone position or like you're using an AI or something like that. So key points here. Number 1, this person, they can be a VA. It doesn't have to be a highly skilled person, but they need to understand basic English and basic communication. Okay, so like they're going to be talking with prospects, so they need to have like good conversational skills. So I just want to make sure if you go the cheapest outsource option of a VA, it could shoot you in the foot a little bit. Like you need somebody who can like go back and forth like a basic, like almost like a customer service rep with prospects. Okay. They also, and this is the most important thing, if you don't do this, it's not even worth doing. They have to use a company iPhone so that the messages send blue. Okay, so this is why developing your own AI is very tough, and also why using any sort of automation doesn't work, because the automation a lot of times comes from a 5 or 6 digit number, and a lot of times people see that, they know automatically it's not a real person, they're not even going to look at it. If it comes from a real number and it's also a blue iMessage, we found, it's the difference between this whole system working and not working. You have to do this. Like, it is the most important thing. Now, we've developed our internal software to where through an application called SendBlue, it'll do all the automations through the AI and send blue. So eventually, like, you can get an automation to be able to do this, and we still have a person to oversee it. But the easiest way to just start doing this right now is just hire somebody to do this, give them their company iPhone, boom, they're good. Okay. Now, what we do is based on if they confirm or don't confirm, we factor that into the double booking process later. So there's a couple benefits of this. Number 1, just the nature of doing it will raise your show rates a ton. Like, this is one of the biggest things that we added as a lever that really put our show rates on a good mark. Now, not only by itself, it raises your show rates, but then based on how those show rates fall in that 66% metric, we'll factor if they confirm or don't confirm into our logic if we double book them or not. So more on that later. So look at the scripting of what we send. I just kind of created this as a template. So the day before, we do, hey name, this is Janelle from Closer.io, Cole Gordon's team. So you put an appointment with our team, send, right? So I always do, like, you don't want to send a big block of text. What you want to do essentially is do like briefer messages with multiple sends. It looks a little bit more personal. All right. So will you do me a favor, please? Can you reply yes if you're 100% confirmed your appointment time? Let me know we're excited to connect. Send. Okay. Now, if they confirm, you say, awesome, we're looking forward to connecting with you. Will you also watch this video before the call? It'll help us hit the ground running. Let me know if you need any assistance before the appointment, and then we link the video. The video is what we call our pre-call video, and it's essentially a video that sells them on our unique mechanism or unique selling propositions before the call, and also gives them some case studies, preps them for the call, etc. So I could do a separate training on that, but it's basically kind of a video that doubles down and sort of resells them on our thesis of getting them to the result that they're looking for. That's if they confirm. If they don't confirm, then we say, just bumping this message above, text me back if you're confirmed. Okay. And then also, PS, will you watch this video before the call? It'll help us hit the ground running. Don't worry about the red text here. That's just there for no reason, but this is basically what we send. You can test this by sending, I would do 2 different tests. Try the day before and see what the results are, and then also try immediately upon booking and see what the results are. If you try immediately upon booking, you get higher confirmation rates, but you're going to get a lower percentage of show of those confirmations. If you do it the day before, you're going to get lower confirmations, but you're going to get much higher show rates of those confirmations. Hopefully that makes sense. So test both and just see what gives you ultimately the higher net show rate. I say test both because we tested both, and for different companies I've had, one has worked better for one has worked better for the other. So you kind of got to test both. Lever number 5 is very similar, but this is just personalized automated emails. So this isn't a manual thing. We can do this completely automated. So here's the email that goes out. This goes out immediately. And this is read before your call important. Hey, just saw you booked a meeting with our team. We're looking forward to connecting with you. In the meantime, can you do a quick favor and accept the calendar the invite that was sent over? Thanks. Also, make sure you watch this video before the call. Hit the ground running. Then 2 hours later, we do a manual connection from our main email, that's my email, to the closer. And so it's like, hey, prospect name, wanted to collect you with a closer name since you guys will be chatting here shortly. So-and-so has worked with similar businesses like yours. They'll be able to outline the next steps we recommend for you to scale to the next level. Excited for you guys to chat. Thanks, Cole. A reminder about watching the video. Pretty simple on the emails. Now, just to give you an overview of the entire cadence all together, basically immediately or shortly after booking, we send a confirmation email. The one-sub booking email confirmation goes out, and then sales kick confirmation text. That's the sales coordinator. Sales kick is the software that my CMO and I have developed to essentially do this all automated send blue with AI. So you can check out Sales Kick if you're interested. Then 2 hours after booking, we do that confirmation email we just covered with the closer. 24 hours before, they get one reminder email from OneSub. Day before, day of, Sales Kick bumps the text message. Okay, so again, that's kind of the thing we already covered. Then an hour before, we get a reminder text and a reminder email, 15 minutes before reminder text, 10 minutes before reminder email. So you can copy this cadence if you want. I think the 10 and 15 minutes before, that could probably be even an hour. You could test doing a little bit less frequency there if that's a little bit too much for your prospects. The rest of it, I'd probably keep the same. Real quick, and then we'll get back to the video. If you need help with any of these 3 things, either installing a lead acquisition internally in your business, you need new sales reps, and you want sales reps recruited done for you, and also get the sales consulting and sales management help that comes with that. Or if you just want overall business strategies of how you can scale to 8 figures or beyond, go to the link in the description, click that link, check out the video, and then book a call with our team. We'd love to help you with any of those 3 things. Now back to the video. Now we're getting into the big guns, which is double bookings. So if you've implemented every single one of these things that we've talked about up into this point, so that should say steps 1 through 5, not 1 through 6. If you've implemented everything up into this point and you still have less than a 66% show rate, then what I would do is, number 1, you delineate show rates back to the application. So remember, we grade applications 1 through 4. We want to see what the show rate of each of those grades is. Anything that's not above 66, we're going to kind of move to the next stage, right? So in other words, if you, let's say, like I said before, your 4 grade applications are 75%, rule number 1 is we always book the single book 4 grade applications. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Rule number 2 is we manually track our LNS confirmations versus non-confirmations. So you implement the LNS system. They're manually texting people all day. It's sending blue. And then what we do is we do that for a week or 2 weeks. Then what we do is we look at what was the show rate of the people that confirmed versus what was the show rate of people who didn't confirm. Almost always, I've almost never seen it where it's not this case, that people who confirm are going to show above 66. The people who don't confirm will probably not show above 66. So then what we do is, to kind of recap, anything that is confirmed, single book. Anything that is not confirmed, we double book unless it's that 4 grade application that we already know shows up at a high rate. Okay. The only other thing I would add to this is that setters, just to clarify, we always single book because, as we'll talk about in a little bit, your setter show rate is completely within the setter's control, and there's no reason it shouldn't be over 70%. Okay, now, what if multiple people show up? So what we do is we have a specific channel. You can do this in Slack or whatever communication platform that you use. We have a specific channel for any double shows. So 2 people show up at one time. Now what happens is if any closer has another no-show and they're open, they can take that live call transfer. They go into the CRM, find the person's number, call them, get them back on Zoom, and then boom, they're in a consult. The setters also know at the top of every hour, there's probably going to be a double show. You know, if we have 6 or 7, 8 closers, there's probably 1 double show almost every hour. So the setters are also looking for it as well. So a lot of times the setter will get a hold of them. The setter will kind of start triaging. Then the closer will become available because then they had a no-show, and then we'll hot transfer right back to the closer. Okay. So if it's a closer, we get them on the call. We just act, go as normal. Sometimes if it's a setter and then a closer is not available for a hot transfer, then what we do is we just act like, hey, this is a normal process. And we always do 2 call closes. Okay. So just to be clear, there's going to be some inefficiency But in my experience, and I've done a lot of testing with this, it is a far better trade-off than trying to build a team on a 40, 50, 60% show rate. I mean, it's a tremendously better trade-off. And it's because this really will optimize your offers per day per closer metric. And the thing is you really want the smallest amount of sales team doing the most amount of revenue. Because number one, that means we have to train less people. It's less operational complexity. We can also have our salespeople make more money. Thus, we can recruit better salespeople and we can retain them longer. And then we have a more efficient unit, less operational drag, less operational complexity, and then more efficiency per closer. And then they're happier, they stay longer. So there's just so many different reasons why we really want to do this to optimize the smallest team doing the most amount of revenue, opposed to just accepting, let's say, 50% show rate, and then just being like, okay, we're just going to scale to 20 closers. Okay, you're going to have 20 crappy closers, all not making a lot of money. Okay, now this works a lot better at scale, the double booking system, because again, if you have 6 closers and 6 setters, if you have a double show, your team will be able to absorb that, no problem. If you have 1 closer and 1 setter, you're probably going to have some issues. The setter might be on a call, the closer has a double booking, nobody's going to be there. So these are just some things to think about. This system is even better as you get more into scale. It's much more efficient. A lot of people switch to this when they're around 2 closers, 2 setters and beyond. Okay, so lever number 7 is rebookings. This is pretty quick. For any no-shows, the closer is going to mark that appointment as a no-show in the CRM. So they kind of move the deal stage over to no-show. The CRM then automatically will do a text connection and an email connection with the setter to reset. They'll enter them. And then the setter show rates on that are going to be a normal setter show rates for about 70% plus. So almost think about this way as an automated way to just give the setters a new stream of new leads coming in right into their text inbox, okay? Aside from doing this one thing, I wouldn't spend unnecessary time chasing no-shows. Generally, I find that new leads coming in, if I'm a setter, a new lead coming in is a much more higher leverage point of my activity than even chasing down a no-show, okay? And it's kind of converse because you think, oh man, the no-show was way down in my funnel. That's gotta be a hotter prospect. I just found through data, it's just really not the case. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go for them. I'm just saying some people way over index on that. Now, mentioned this earlier, but what do you do if your setter show rate sucks? Big question I get. So your setter show rate, if it's below 70%, it can almost always get improved. And the truth is the setter show rate has really nothing else to do outside of the skill set of your setter. Okay. Our best setters, I mean, I've seen 90% show rates of our best setters before. Generally, like a ramp setter for us, we're looking at 75, 80% plus. And always almost a setter show rate is going to be much better than an ads show rate. And I mean, it makes sense. They're talking to a real person. You're making sure they can do the time. You're getting some tie downs. You're really selling them on the value of the call. Like there's no reason why a real person shouldn't outperform automation. Okay, so the setter show rate should almost always do better. Now, if you're not experiencing that, your setter calls are either not valuable, not insightful, it feels like a telemarketing call. Like, yeah, I mean, if a prospect interacts with your company and it's like somebody super robotic, they sound like they're from overseas, they're giving no value, no insight, why would you expect them to show up? And first of all, that's not even a good impression of your company, but why would you expect them to show up? They're not going to show up. They're not doing tie downs, they're not connecting with the prospects, etc. You get the point, okay? So that, and by the way, even if like you want to look at those things, because even if you are getting shows, if those things aren't happening on your setter call is part of your initial conditions of the entire sales process. So the better the setter call, the higher the close rate is. That's why, like, if we look at our best setters, they have the highest set to close rate because their setter calls are the most valuable. They're really teeing people up the right way. So the setters with the best show rates almost always have the best close rates as well, undoubtedly. And that's not even factoring in the show rate of that thing. So if you're experiencing that, what do you actually do to fix it? Well, it's pretty simple. You QC, review, and do coaching with your setters. And you want to do that at the same frequency you do as your closers. Most people neglect their setter team and focus all on the closers. You want to make sure you give the setters some love. They need some loving. So, oftentimes they're very, very neglected. If maybe you're not a sales expert, okay, hire somebody who is to review some of your setter calls and give you feedback on things you might be missing. Coach the setters up or out. If you still have continual issues, one of the easiest things to do, especially if you're a good sales savvy person, if you have issues with this, the easiest like 1-day fix is, or 2-day fix sometimes, is literally just set yourself, okay, like be a setter for a day. It'll probably take a day. Maybe it takes 2 days. Take a Thursday, Friday, just do it. Okay, seems tedious, but I guarantee by the end of that day, you will know everything broken with your setter process. You're going to know exactly what they need to do to be able to getting sets. You're going to know exactly what the scripting needs to sound like. You're going to know exactly what the realistic KPIs are, and you can rebuild everything from the ground up. Plus, you have all these good call recordings of you doing it. It's like a one-day fix to really build your setter department for the future. It's a huge return on time, okay? Now, moving on from setters, let's say you've done all of this, all the 7 levers, you've done the setter stuff, and your show rate still sucks. If you implement everything that I've talked about and your show rate sucks, even with the double bookings, okay, and your net show rate's still like 30 to 40%, almost always it means it's an issue with how you're generating the leads. In other words, your offer, your ads, or your VSL stink. Okay, most people think like, oh, my ad or my offer or my VSL or my marketing campaign or whatever has nothing to do with the show rate, but everything is interconnected. And in fact, I've actually delineated Facebook targeting options and found that certain targeting options in Facebook led to drastically different show rates. There was one targeting option in particular that I found we could not get above 25% show rate, which for us was like crazy. I'd never even seen that before. And it was literally, I found out just by looking at all these different campaigns and other campaigns that were using that, it was one weird targeting option that we were using. So things like that can make a difference. Everything is interconnected because your ads and your media buying, you know, if you think about your acquisition as a system, right? That's the inputs, the ads and the media buying into the system. And the inputs are going to dictate the outputs. That's really what sets the initial conditions. Okay, so what happens a lot of times is I see clients who, no matter what, they implement everything, their show rate's horrible, and then I look at their ads, and it's like the scammiest, crappiest ads I've literally ever seen. Okay, and it's like, well, no wonder nobody's showing up. And what happens is you know, Facebook's really good at trying to give you some sort of conversions so that on paper, it looks like things are working and you can spend more money. But, you know, Facebook's also really good at, by the way, of getting you those conversions to optimize for the lowest tier of bottom of the barrel traffic. Okay, especially true for B2C offers. So what happens is you may need to fix this and kind of raise the quality and raise the creative and the media buying strategies if you've tried everything up until this point and it's not working. Now, again, this is my last ditch effort. I would start here. I would start with all the other stuff and build to this. So to give you some actual takeaways, the number one thing you can do is just write better ads, sales videos, etc. Like if the ad is better, like higher quality, you'll get higher throughput, better performance, and then therefore better quality because there's just more people and therefore more qualified people. And then you're also going to get increased quality because the ad is better and it speaks to a more sophisticated person just by the nature of it being a better ad. Okay. Now, if you're still stuck, try solving the same problem, moving slightly up market. So I'll give you an example. You know, when we were doing a business to consumer sales training product, like teaching somebody how to get into sales, our messaging was very biz-oppy. And then what improved the quality and therefore the show rate a lot was making it not a biz-oppy type of thing, but a career-oppy type of thing. And what I mean by that is the messaging went from like, hey, learn this one skill to be able to make money online and you don't have to start a business because of it, to like, hey, if you're a sales rep and you haven't broken your first 6 figures a year, it might not be your skill set, it's actually your industry. And what if I told you there was one industry that you could get into that gets you all these benefits, etc. So I framed it away from going to like anybody who wanted to make money to salespeople wanting to get to the next level. And that drastically increased the quality of not only the applications coming in, but also the show rate. We had a client who teaches like how to flip sports cards. And when they do BizOp messaging, for instance, they get really bad quality. So they focus more on like white collar professionals wanting to generate passive income that increases their quality, increases their show rate. I've had a client who has become a copywriter offer. Okay. When they did the same thing, when they did the BizOp messaging, had all those issues, lower quality, lower show rate, etc. So then they shifted it to like going after writers and hey, here's how to tap into a certain type of writing that can double your income as a writer. Okay, I'm not saying writers are the wealthiest market in the world, far from it, but you're going after at least an actual identified professional, not just anybody on Facebook who wants to make money. Same thing with IT. I had a client who was like BizOp messaging, trying to get anybody and everybody to get into IT. And I'm like, no, dude, go after existing IT professionals and how to actually double their income by advancing in their career and learning these cybersecurity things to essentially get to the next level in IT. So what we covered in this video will skyrocket your show rates, but it won't matter unless you have a high performing sales team. So click this video here for the exact system we use to run our multiple 8-figure sales team.